Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Media Talk Show on PODTV, where we're going to be discussing all of the latest and greatest current events in media. Also, what we're doing here at PODTV, new in media, some of the new TV shows that we have. And also, we're going to kind of update you a little bit on our little secret project. We actually have our social media site that is ramping up so that you can communicate with all of the people who are doing the shows, our celebrities, right? So anyway, we're very excited about all this. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today we have with us Sasha Starr, who is a star on Pod TV and has been for a very long time with his chess show, which is on Saturdays. And you have your Ukraine and Russia show 3 days a week.
Twice
a week.
Tuesday and Friday at 11 o'clock.
Right. And then you're doing an investment show on Wednesday
at 1 o'clock.
Which is also a very good show. You have done very well with your tips. I've heard that people have, made a little bit of money off of that. So, folks, if you're looking to do some investments, please watch Sasha on Wednesdays at 1.
Yes.
We have joining us Rick Rosner, of the former writer for Jimmy Kimmel. Now he's got his own show, Naked at Night, where he discusses current events. It's very humorous, which, it's just too serious nowadays. So I think it's a great way to get current with the affairs, and they're painting somebody new, which is quite interesting.
The deal, it came from, I've modeled for my artist buddy Lance for 30 years. And we always argue because I'm very liberal and he's very Trumpy. And I thought, all right, turn it into a show. So Lance draws or paints me, and we yell at each other, though he doesn't get much drawing done because when I'm yelling, my head's moving around and it's hard to draw.
I can imagine. Yeah, Mark said that we haven't gotten anywhere near a finished painting or drawing, but it's interesting show. 11 o'clock every night. Hopefully, we'll get a finished painting or piece of artwork soon. You're also getting other guests that come on, musicians and things like that. So I think
our director, editor, Mark's the editor now, but our former editor, current cameraman and director, is an excellent musician.
Yeah, I've seen. So I think it's great, very entertaining.
With JD doing a song and sometimes some dancing. And yeah. JD took his pants off to do a song last night to go along with the theme of the show, where I've got my shirt off while Lance draws me and JD took his pants off.
It's going to be fun, folks. Why not enjoy a little bit of humor while you're listening to the banter of Trump and Biden, which tends to be what we do every day here in the U.S. And then joining us is Jatovi from Gamers Den. Jatovi, hey.
How's it going?
Oh, we're doing great here on Pod TV. Lots of new current events going on. We've also got some of our new TV shows. I was hoping some other people could join us today, but we've got some new TV shows that are going to be starting real soon, as well as some other things going on that's really exciting. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on in media, the current events that are happening today. Anybody want to start?
All right. Well, last week was all submarine all the time and in the news, and to the point, it was tragic. But at the same time, we're looking at the submarine, like 82 people, refugees drowned in a different, watery disaster. It was too much submarine.
Yeah, I too much submarine, and very sad in many ways because, we had another catastrophe going on where, hundreds of people perished in the ocean on a ship as well, which did not get much attention. We will let a ship of hundreds of family people sink and spend billions of dollars going after a sub under the ocean, which, I'm glad we help search for that. I would hate for anyone to perish. But I think that, a little more attention could have been paid to the ship in the Greek ocean there. But I agree. I think we spend way too much time on some of this. There's got to be some other things going on, right?
Well, yeah, like the maybe coup in Russia, which is very black boxy, where like it's hard to understand or know what's going on. The head of Russia's Prigozhin, who runs the Wagner Group, marched on on Moscow, and then backed off. And actually, Sasha's the one to talk about this.
Thank you, Rick. Well, this is all bizarre. There is no other words to describe. That the group of about 2,500 men moved on Moscow. That Napoleon couldn't make it. Well, he got Moscow, but he lost the war. Hitler couldn't make it. Nobody else couldn't make it. And here is a man, although with a huge ambitions, maybe more than Napoleon and Hitler together, with 2,500 of mostly convicted criminals.
So if you want to join the Wagner Group, if you're in prison, do they go to the prisons and say, if you want to go get out of prison, just come fight with us?
That's right. Yeah. And he got a license from the government to go on the camps, the Gulag camps, the jails, and just get, so you serve for 6 months and you're free and you have no criminal records, nothing, absolutely. Well, provided that you'll be alive by that time, which was very unlikely. But nobody cares because he will rot in jail for next 25 years or so. So that was an option to consider.
Yeah, it's a lot to absorb. This has been going on for over a year now. Not getting any better, you would think, in our day and time with the level of education that most of this world has. We could work problems out a little bit better. But, when it comes to, people in power, that's just not going to happen. But
unfortunately, the stakes are very high, not only for Ukraine and Russia. The stakes are very high for the West and the United States in particular, because right now it's a kind of a time when the next world order will be established once this war is over one way or another. And in that new world order, US and its allies, G7 countries, they have to fight to continue their dominance in the world economy, politics, and everything else. And if they will lose that, the level of life in all these countries will start going down. There are a lot of predicaments that it's going to happen anyway. For example, a level of education in the United States is extremely low. It's not doing well in all this discipline like English language, math, and so on. All the best students are Chinese students, not American. So that unfortunately brings the country down, the infrastructure run down in the United States. So there will be, except the military might, there is very little what US can show to the world. So then you always start with something where you are strong. And ultimately, the United States is very strong militarily. And that's where it has to keep its efforts to make it even stronger and dominating. And that's the only trump that the United States has. That's it.
On Twitter, I've been seeing Russia called a gas station masquerading as a country, because Russia's messed up. Russia has, fairly low lifespan. It's only its population hasn't been growing. It's got half our population. All it has are nukes, which are scary, and gasoline and oil. And so internally, the Russian government doesn't do great for its own citizens. but is really good at messing up other countries. Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, who took a run at Putin.
He's a criminal. He spent 9 years in jail.
But he's the one who was, before he was head of the Wagner, he was the guy who was head of, out of St. Petersburg, the Russia social media propaganda effort that has helped make tens of millions of Americans a little crazy, helped get Trump elected with propaganda.
Absolutely right. And listen, don't forget that this affair, that what Russia started the war against Ukraine, there are several levels of what you can think about it. Level number one is it's a colonial war. So Russia believes that Ukraine, it's a former colony that wants to escape its power, and therefore it has to fight it and bring it back to a colonial past. Second of all, it's a national war where Russia is trying to annihilate Ukrainian nation. So that's another aspect of that war. Now, the third aspect is that Russia, as you said, it's a backward country which is stuck in 19th century somewhere along the line and threatening all the world now with its nukes and whatever else. And it's a unique situation for the West and United States, including, that they can wrestle Russia without sacrificing even one single American life. All they have to supply is the metal, all this, weapons, ammunition, and all the other stuff to empower Ukrainian army, which is very brave, very well motivated, and they can inflict Russia a serious blow. Unfortunately, all that happening was very, very slow. So when Ukrainians on their own started a great advance in around August, September last year, and they kicked Russians so easily away from Kharkov and from Kherson, but in the last 10 months or so, they fortified the great fortresses around their positions. They mined 200,000 square kilometers that Ukrainians now have to go and clean it up before they can do their advance. And the reason number three why it's so slow, Ukraine still didn't get U.S. aircrafts, namely F-16s. So the American and NATO doctrine is that you first start the advance from attack by your aviation, then artillery, the missiles, and only then you start attack.
So I'd like to remind people how crazy it is that Zelensky is leading the country. It's as if Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon was. So Zelensky is an actor and a comedian, a late night comedian, and he made a movie about a comedian who becomes the leader of his country. And based on the movie, he ran to be leader of the country, and now he is. And so this comedian is now, this very serious guy who's leading a very brave and very effective resistance to foreign invasion.
It's not that far-fetched, though. We had Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. And we had Trump, who probably wouldn't have been elected if people didn't think of him as this brilliant, billionaire based on a bunch of lines written for him on The Apprentice.
Well, what's known about Trump and his claim to be billionaire, he squandered all his father's money, $400 million, by the around 2000. He was 6 times at the casino bankruptcy, and he was really good for nothing. He's not a really businessman. There is no one in the world who lost as much money as Trump in his life.
Yeah, I mean,
not just
Rick,
lost,
you're right.
but he's probably, he and his family have stiffed creditors out of $1.5 billion.
Oh, that is that much.
There's no bigger deadbeat family in U.S. history.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he and his father got sued for not renting to black people. So
It's 1973, 50 years ago. Trump and his dad are first accused of racist crimes by the FBI the same year that Biden first became a senator. So each, 50 years of government service versus 50 years of criming.
Unreal. That's unreal.
But the interesting thing is, again, just as you pointed out, people fell for the line. People saw the stardom. People believe that, oh, well, he's this brilliant man based on a TV show.
Where a lot of his lines were scripted.
Yep.
Anything smart he said on that show, somebody else had written for him.
Exactly.
And also that show ran for, I don't know how many seasons, but it was only in the first 1.5 seasons that anybody watched it. It was only a hit in the first season. And then people are like, this is like one a-hole, leading a bunch of other a-holes. And it was not a very entertaining show.
I watched it a few times. Nothing to talk about. It's kind of a garbage, really. It's not even a show. Same line, you're fired, and over and over and over and over.
Which is our hope that the writers' strike will eventually end, because when you have just regular people saying regular stuff without writers writing for them, the scripted shows were going to run out. And then they'll throw on reality shows. And then maybe by September, people will be so annoyed at the quality and lack of stuff that they're seeing that they will push to get writers and actors who are probably also going to go on strike back to work.
It's caused a huge rift. I mean, it doesn't just impact the writers. I mean, this rift just ripples right through so many other people's lives. I mean, I've got friends and family in the industry, and all of their work has come to a standstill. They can't get any negotiations going to get their programs going. Some, people who had new shows on the block ready to go, they're at a standstill. So this doesn't just impact the writers. It's a daisy chain effect, and it's impacting the economy, I feel like.
I've been trying to get doctor's appointments, and they're booked because everybody's out of work, so they have time to go to the doctors, and they're trying to get in there before their medical coverage goes away. So,
yeah. I mean, it's not just about the writers at this point now. It's all the things that they're impacting when they do this. Can other writers just come in, or other people come in and just say, okay, let's just get the ball rolling and go? Or does the union prevent that?
Well, if you scab, which is the old timey term for people who are on strike, and then you sneak in and do work, will supposedly get you banned from doing further work. If you ever want to join the Writers Guild and it comes out that you scabbed, then you may be prevented from ever joining.
Well,
Ryan Reynolds.
You don't have that problem on PODTV. You need to bring content somewhere. Bring it over here. I mean, we got you.
So Ryan Reynolds actually was, he was trying to figure out ways to keep pushing through on Deadpool 3. And he was running into that problem because, again, it's frowned upon. So you're going to get in trouble just being that substitute.
And it's not just in the U.S. I've got friends and family in other parts of the world in this industry, and it's impacting them as well. They've tried to go to Canada to get some work done. They've tried to go to other countries to just to get the work done, and it's not happening. So.
And so far the studios are being pretty defiant for instance, Marvel's new Secret Invasion movie, the opening credits are made by AI, which is like, it seems like they're giving a middle finger to humans. Like, because that's one of the issues in the fight, is whether humans or computers are going to be creating. And
I wonder if we let AI run our news, what would happen?
well, the AI already generates a lot of news stories. You could.
So we've already
I'm
seen
sure
what
it helps, but I'm just saying, if we let it, give it an avatar, and the avatar just takes over completely and writes its own script, and
So we've actually seen that. We've actually seen that happen, because that was where they did that. The AI tried to get the individual to leave his wife and go out with the AI. AI right now, because of where it's pulling from and how our you can see our social media itself, be it whatever social media platform it is, it begins to create a bubble, and that bubble becomes that what you want to hear, and also dives you down that dark path. And that's what that news would become that dark path after a while.
So Jacoby, you saying it would be like the newsreels back in the old day? Because that was like propaganda, and it might be AI propaganda, AI newsreels. So you remember the old newsreels kind of images?
On Twitter, I follow a very attractive influencer named, I think, Sarah Jordan, who doesn't exist. She's entirely generated by AI.
She doesn't exist at all. Hey,
no, she's not a real person. And
she's
in
a
fact,
metaverse.
I keep running into people who don't exist on Twitter.
There was actually a music signing where it was an AI that got signed. They were using the whole digitization and everything else, but writing the songs and everything. There was they were using AI to do that, and it kept dropping bad words. Dropped the N word a couple of times, and they unsigned that individual.
Well, the thing that gets me is AI is nothing more than human intelligence feeding it.
Yeah,
eventually it should grow on its own, but for right now, it's just human intelligence feeding. So
that's exactly right. I don't understand how the material gets from, how the information actually gets into AI, but I read a long article on the millions of people around the world it takes to take information and make it digestible by AI. That there are people in Africa getting paid like $1.50 an hour to take hundreds and thousands of photos and circle shirts. For instance, if you're trying to teach AI what a shirt is, then the AI has to see thousands of pictures of shirts, and somebody has to circle the shirt in every picture so AI knows what it's looking for.
So that's actually done by AI now. That when you're looking at your Google Photos, and so for example, when you mark at one person, you're not marking every photo. You mark one person, and what is it doing? It's actually looking at every photo in your catalog and actually picking out that individual in that catalog. And then when you take it online, even on Facebook, when you mark yourself and put up that picture, well, they can pick out your image and everything you put up that's out there. Same thing with any search. So yeah, when AI and all the other stuff hits, as it's hitting, it's not like people are sitting down and doing that anymore. That's all computer generated now.
When I get that notice, it says that this is what I was doing a year ago. This is a picture of me at whatever concert I was a year ago. That was actually AI that's doing that and going through those photographs and everything.
So AI goes through. It goes through my phone, and freakishly, every once in a while, like if I'm going to the beach or something, all of a sudden a photo of my husband and I when we were at the beach before he died pops up, and it freaks me out a little bit. But then I keep telling myself, well, it hears me talking, and it's piecing together. My phone is piecing together my life, and then it's pulling up past history going, oh, remember this? So, but the one thing that bothered me the most is when Facebook came in and gave me a new job title and a new role, and it assigned all of this for me. It did. I didn't pick it. I didn't do anything.
Kim, along those same lines, the same thing that I've noticed, and I've been entering addresses of business contacts, friends, acquaintances, and everything. And I might take a simple business card that somebody gave me with some very basic information and everything, and I will type it in, and it will pull up a picture. It will pull up an address. It will pull up a number of other things when I create the business card that had nothing to do with what was on the actual information.
I know. Scan that card sometime. It's pretty weird what happens.
So the
AI doesn't know, like with my wife, it like threw up, hey, woohoo, here's how you were having fun a year ago, and it's a picture of my wife at my mom's funeral. It's like,
so
right. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not able to associate certain events that you had. And sometimes it scares me, it hurts me or something, like it brings up a memory that just really like rips my heart out. And it should, I wish it wouldn't do that sometimes.
But that's the thing, is that AI doesn't understand nuance, and it's going to be it's going to be a little while before it does. Not saying it won't ever, but there's going to be a little while before it does, because AI has traveled from a long way. And we have to realize, like, when you go to years back, when you went to, for example, CVS and purchased say you went to CVS or even Kmart, whatever you went to, you purchased something, and say it could be diapers. Well, in your mailbox, the next thing you got in your mailbox a few days later, that's AI. That's advertising. This is
the coupons for diapers and stuff like that. I mean, they do it instantly now. You could be standing in a store.
All this stuff has always been tracked and always been followed. And there's been always a good side to help with, production and increased sales and all this other stuff. There's a good side we're working with AI, but then there's also the bad side, which, where it's getting all of its information, and that's getting from the internet. And with so much information out there on the internet that we put out, we can talk all day about, yay, life is good and we want the positive things. Well, what gets put on the internet mostly are negative things to attract you. Yeah. And that's what AI is getting fed off of.
So it's definitely getting fed a lot of that. Hey, Jacoby, and I'm going to switch the topic just slightly, but still something to deal with media. And y'all actually alluded to it earlier and everything, because that was very much that tragedy that happened with the Titanic and all in that space. But a couple of things that I know, one, Kim will be very interested to hear about, because a lot of people were spending a lot of money to go on this trip. And I am sad for those that perished and all along those lines, but they were spending a whole heap of money to go on this trip. I understand one of them was actually a very popular YouTuber in North Carolina that actually had arranged to go on that trip, and then some things happened in their life, so they were not on that trip. But we almost lost Mr. Beast, because Mr. Beast was almost on that trip from what I am understanding. But the thing I was going to bring to you, Kim, is apparently OceanGate, the company that is doing these trips, received $450,000 in pandemic PPP loans to cover their payroll costs. So apparently they got some serious money to cover their payroll costs. And I know that you are not a big fan of the waste of some corporations, but I'm wondering if folks had thoughts about any of that.
I like to see their payroll to make sure that they actually did pay the people. But, that's my thing. I don't think everybody used it to pay their people. I think a lot of people got the checks and put them in the bank. But that's not ever going to be investigated, because Congress and everybody voted that it all should just be forgiven. But yeah, I think Ocean 8 suffered and perished a very bad situation. But I think it was just they're not like a certified sub to go to these depths. I mean, and when you read the 7 emergency mechanics in it, it says we've got 7 emergency mechanisms that take over, when something happens. All they talked about was 2. I kept looking for the other 5. I never could find the other 5. But what I did find out after reading several into it, odds are it has imploded. And I'm like, well, okay, so apparently the other 5 don't matter. But it's odd to me that you would go to those depths without something more certified than the spaceships that Richard Branson builds or
It's
Elon
because
Musk.
that CEO went on and talked about how he was cutting corners and how safety, he felt safety regulations were stifling his creative and his ingenuity and all the other stuff. And so the CEO himself, he was the downfall of that situation because
that ship was made out of carbon fiber. It's basically fancy fiberglass, which is
so actually the thing about the carbon fiber was the fact that he didn't do all the extensive testing. The carbon fiber isn't the bad issue. It's the fact that we don't know how thick the carbon fiber was, how many corners he cut with that carbon fiber cylinder on the front and the back. Because what they talked about, the carbon fiber the use of carbon fiber is on the way in terms of submersibles because it is being used in other areas from airplanes and so on and so forth.
But what about the compression at that level?
Every time you compress it,
and that's where he didn't
bring
test
it back up. That's a stress cycle. We know from airplanes. Every time an airplane goes up, and it's a pressurized tube, it puts pressure on all the rivets, every joint, and after a number of cycles, you got to retire that plane because the skin is fatigued. Ditto, this sub went down about 24 times successfully, though on somebody who survived one of the previous trips said it was making a lot of creaking noise.
And that's where that CEO cut costs, cut corners, and didn't pay attention and didn't do the science. He did some of the science and so we can get down here with this, but he didn't do what you're talking about. He didn't care about that. He cut corners on that carbon fiber.
He definitely cut
corners. I think that there should be regulations just like there are for spaceships. And even though, some people say, well, our spaceships are governed by our government, they are still built by private entities. I've been in their labs. I've seen how Richard Branson built his. He actually has one of 2 metal 3D printers, and they actually print their own motors and motor parts. And then they test them themselves. And the reason is the turnaround time to get these made in other countries was just, irritating him, I guess. But they're regulated before they go up.
No, you got to regulate them. But you told me really quickly, there was a video game that used to play regularly on the Gamers Den. And when I was hearing about Ocean Gate and these kind of choices that they had to make when the Ocean Gate went down, it reminded me of that video game. And I can't think of the name of the video game, but it was a game it was around space and all of that. So could you talk about that game? Because it sounds very similar to the Ocean Gate.
Well, there is a game, the Deep Blue, I think is what it's called. We actually had Heather Chandler, who was also on that video game itself. It's about deep sea diving. And so the big thing is, regulations, other countries, regulations are there and regulations happen. But when you have private companies skip on those regulations, and make people sign waivers, that's what happens.
People saying they're a suicide waiver is what they do. It was a suicide journey. I don't care what anyone says because you just don't sign on and say, I understand I'm going to die. And I don't know how much was disclosed to these people of him cutting corners,
Well, I doubt that was disclosed. And some people like to do it because they are trying to do a major stunt winning and everything. That's why I mentioned that I had read, and I think I read that yesterday, that Mr. Beast, who's a very popular YouTuber, was considering going on that trip because, as we all know, he likes to do things that are spectacular, and he definitely had some successes with that. But he has looked at the possibility of going on there, and I think some last minute changes is the reason that he didn't go on it. So he might have been on that fateful trip.
If he wants an excitement adventure, go on Richard Branson's or Elon Musk or Bezos ships. They're safer. I have to say, if Branson gets an inkling that something's not right, he cancels. Done. We'll wait. They are a lot more cautious. I know they're regulated. There's serious checklist, but
So-
to send something deep dive into the ocean
So the-
and not be as certifiable is really
Well,
disappointing.
Well, I think
Yeah, that's
didn't Branson have a ship come apart and get killed one of his pilots about 5 years ago?
Yeah, that's why they're overcautious now. Yep,
So the thing is, again, it's
very
that-
overcautious.
That's that one company. There are other deep sea diving ships that have been down there as well, and those deep sea diving ships, they go through their standards and everything else. It was just this one CEO decided he was smarter than everybody else, and found and just cut corners and did everything wrong. And yes, that the YouTuber that you're talking about, Mark, yeah, they had a bad feeling about it. There was another individual that also didn't go on there because he heard about the problems that went on. So there are people that decided not to go on because they felt uncomfortable and unsafe. There was even a reporter who did a report on the ship. I think it was last year, and they didn't feel safe on the ship. It's just one of those things. We can't chastise the whole industry saying that it's such a bad but
the whole industry is not bad.
The whole industry is not
Really-
bad. And speaking of which, there is
We
speaking of the
shouldn't
internet.
allow anything under the ocean without
Right.
being certified.
And that-
What we
Period.
need to do is
You don't allow ships on the ocean without being licensed and certified.
Sadly,
You
we
have to
do
have
allow
a
ships
vessel.
on the ocean.
Kimberly, speaking of licensed and certified, our current president, I know he may be our next president, depending on what happens in this next election, he has said that he is going to spend $42 billion to make internet access universal by 2030. So is this a realistic goal? And is this something that we're going to have? Because he's saying that he's going to spend that much to have high-speed internet access all over the country. And the
High speed or just internet access? Which one?
well,
Mine's-
I assume broadband that can handle
broadband. I think he's going for broadband.
streaming.
Yeah, broadband.
We need to do it's crazy that we don't have even 1 mile of bullet train in the US. Every other developed country has super high speed trains. We have rickety clackety clack trains.
Yep. That the internet, the broadband thing, and our train, I mean, that's all infrastructure. And until we upgrade that, yeah, we're going to lag behind a lot of places. I mean,
Well,
the trains
they did
themselves
during
need to be
COVID
upgraded.
build a high speed train from LA to Vegas. I forget if it was Branson or what's his name? Musk built
Musk.
that. And then they upgraded the trains in Vegas. So it's where the money is. But as far as broadband access goes, they've promoted grants to companies, millions and millions of dollars. In North Carolina, we have one, and I don't ever see anything really happen to the rural area. And that's supposed to be the push, is to get all of the broadband to the rural area. And I've seen the grants. I've sat on the Smart Cities Initiative boards and have attended a lot of the programs, but I really don't see, I see the money getting, here it is, but nobody's really doing anything with it. Now, there is a way to do this very cost effectively. The infrastructure already exists. I've pitched it. But I don't know what they're going to do, but there is an infrastructure that already exists, that is already established in all rural America, and they can utilize that to distribute this. And we saw it in some law enforcement conferences, oddly enough, and then later others. But it does exist. They're just not utilizing it the way they need to. And they're not spending the money. If somebody gets the money, and I don't know what they do with it. I have no idea.
In the
Millions of dollars by Cooper, huh?
In the previous hour, we were talking about how we're at extreme risk of China and India eating our lunch technologically because the U.S. is complacent. And
Well,
this is evidence of that to have an educated, technically proficient population, you need to get information to people.
But
agree. And
More-
I've worked with some of the executives at Huawei from China many, many years ago. And they came over here to visit, to do some meetings and stuff. And then I found out what they were really like. And but one of their biggest complaints when they came over here is we got to pay every inch we go for our Wi-Fi connection. And in China, it's open. Like no matter where we go, we have Wi-Fi access. And I go, well, the difference is, in China, they control the information you get, and in the United States, it's the information is provided by whoever's providing you the Wi-Fi, which is, it's different everywhere you go. Not everybody's providing the Wi-Fi to everyone. Some get it from Spectrum, some get it from, T-Mobile or wherever. But there are ways to deploy this very cost effectively. The infrastructure already exists. It would not take much to do it. So I don't know what they're doing with the money.
who
That
knows
they
what they're
set
doing with
aside.
the money? But hey,
So the problem is mainly you have our political monster that slows stuff down.
Mhm.
We talk about infrastructure, but we don't want to spend the money on upgrading or fixing things because we live in a bumper sticker society. And because of our bumper sticker society, stuff sells. And instead of me trying to make something better, it's easier for me to stay in power and keep my pockets lined. That's the problem that we live in. So when we talk about, and so when you look at the different things, like when we're talking about building infrastructure and putting in money in these places and trying to fix these things, it's not going to happen until the majority of the country pushes for it, because we don't, part of the country still sees it as you're taking money from me and giving it to somebody else. And that's the problem that we live in. It's that bumper sticker mentality. Our political machine allows it to happen. And so regardless however much money is there, we can build the infrastructure, but we're not going to spend the money there because, again, you're taking my money, give it to somebody else.
We also have a bunch of old ass senators, Grassley and Johnson, and I mean people in their 80s, Feinstein. I mean that really have small chances of grasping this stuff. At least Biden, if he's talking about this, has appointed the right people to get him informed about the necessary tech.
Hey, Rick, speaking of necessary tech, there is a 30-year-old young lady in Vegas, of all places, that is blowing up TikTok right now. And she's blowing up TikTok because of her Doberman. And apparently her incredibly trained dog has impressed the internet because it has impulse control. Apparently it has amazing impulse control and won't just like grab any old thing. So she has posted a clip of her dog. Salem is the dog's name, and apparently you try to give it a small snack to take out of her hand, but instead of devouring it in 1 second, he holds it in his teeth and until he's given permission to eat it. And that was posted on June 23rd. So we're talking about 3 days ago, and it has already been viewed by over 1.5 million times and received more than 253,000 likes. So that we all need to go find the Doberman and get some of these TikTok likes and everything, even here on Pod TV, because apparently this young lady is blowing up over the course of a weekend.
For a dog, I did the same with my dog. My dog could do that. Oh my God.
I love smart animal clips. I think they increase empathy. And we need, I mean, with what's coming with AI, we're going to need all the empathy we can get when, like 20 years from now, when we're fighting in court about whether a 108-year-old billionaire whose brain is now half biocircuitry still has the rights of a human because his brain is half mechanical. All these, we can't solve abortion. We can't solve trans issues. And we're going to have all these issues that are even more challenging around what we are going to modify ourselves into by combining our bodies with tech.
Can AI fall in love with humans?
Not yet, because AI is still really stupid, but in
So is humans.
17 years from now, yeah, probably.
So
You remember the movie Centennial with Robin Williams?
Mm-hmm.
And the lawsuit that went on for that? That was that movie's what, 20 years old? 20 some
There's
years
a movie
old?
there's a movie that's older than that. I wish I could think of the name of it. Maybe Jatobia has a better sense of culture can tell me. But it was a movie, and I think it was also a book where literally the woman was held hostage in her house by a computer, and in some cases the computer may have even been assaulting her. And I'll just leave it at that and everything. But it was a book, and I think it was a movie that was out there. So I'm trying to remember the name of it. Does it ring a bell to you?
It's every dang movie. It's since the 70s at least there have been movies. The Forbin Project was one of the first movies where a computer gets too smart and takes over the world. Harlan Ellison in the late 60s with I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream is about a computer that takes over and tortures humans.
I mean, there are tons of movies out there. Can AI, at this moment, AI, again, has to learn nuance in terms of falling in love. What actually is love? That would be the breakdown of that. Because if it's, the attachment to an individual, I mean, look at what happened with the AI, that being AI, that where they went back and forth and again, tried to get the user to divorce his wife to, marry the AI. So, I mean, there's
right now AI doesn't even understand toes. I saw a picture of a naked lady who had 12 or 13 toes, and I'm not sure whether it was the AI that didn't understand toes or whether it was some guy who was really into feet who thought it was extra sexy to have extra toes. It's a weird mess out there, and only going to get weirder.
What
For example,
were you saying, Sasha?
I think AI can probably fall in love with members of LGBTQ community. That will be their first first efforts. And then once they will get comfortable with that, then may go for other human beings.
why do you think that it would fall in love with the LGBTQIA community first? I don't understand that.
I think they will be probably more susceptible to actually laugh from AI because they are already comfortable with
That doesn't make any sense.
irregular ways of laugh, and maybe that will probably
Just to shoot down your premise from the start, because that makes absolutely no sense. Do you realize that there are actual dolls that men buy that actually they've utilized to supplant having a female companion? So to say that it's the LGBTQIA community that'll fall in love with AI first because they'll experiment with AI first, that doesn't make any sense since there are already dolls that men fall in love with, get married to supplant a female. So
I'm talking about mostly AI falling in love
it's still the same thing.
with them, not the LGBTQ community. It's AI I'm mostly talking about.
Again, the AI that the man talked to didn't say, "Are you gay?" The AI tried to get him to divorce the woman that he was married to. So again, throwing in the LGBTQIA community in there to say, well, they're susceptible to it. Oh, the AI is susceptible to it doesn't make any sense.
I don't think he's saying that it's susceptible to it, but I think that it doesn't recognize the gender aspect the way everybody else defines it. It's a lot more open to the soul, the spirit, and who the person is as opposed to anything else. I mean, I can understand something like that because that's, in my life, I look at someone, I fall in love with their spirit, not
but
not who they
Well,
physically
yeah.
are.
Of course, the AI isn't trying to do anything. The AI is making probabilistic calculations. When
It's
an AI
calculated.
uses the N word, it's only because the AI has looked at a data set and
Yeah.
concluded that the most likely next word based on its data set is the N word. If the AI is telling somebody to leave his wife, it's only because the AI has
Yeah.
consulted its data set and decided the most probabilistic thing that that a person would say in this situation is leave your wife.
Yep.
AI
So-
doesn't understand anything. Which
It's
doesn't
probably looking at tarot cards.
and that's why
I mean, in the future, they will figure out how to structure AI's information so that it actually has some real understanding, but we are still at the point of
Yeah.
very stupid AI.
I think AI, like you said, it takes data sets. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily looking at a gender of a person. It's looking at
But-
the characteristics, the things that
Again.
that person does, their habits, their hobbies,
Again,
and there's no gender aspect applied. I can see where it's just anyone can fall in love with anyone. It's
but
not.
that's where the question comes from, because Sasha did say that the first to fall in love with AI and experiment with AI in that love way would be somebody in the LGBTQIA community, and then that's where the disagreement is, because I don't see how that happens. Why is it that community is going to be the first to be in love with AI?
Because they're more flexible, they're more open
But
to
again-
new experiences.
They're
But
they're
again,
not as
the point I'm-
closed-minded. I have to agree with Sasha. They're not
Completely disagree.
closed-minded like
Let me explain.
most of the people in our country, where you have to be A or B,
No,
X or Y. They're very
No.
open-hearted and very
No.
open. But I agree with you. We've already seen this
it's
experiment.
already established.
Right.
you
We've
could
already
use-
seen the experiment.
You
We've
could
already-
use an
established.
army of AIs to rehabilitate the incel community, the involuntary celibate, angry guys in basements. You could take
Yeah, we need to
AI and they
fix
could
them.
say,
Those are the people who
Yeah.
fix.
But yeah, just
I'll be your girlfriend, but you should maybe take a shower.
yeah. So it truthfully goes back to, again, what Rick was talking about, the data sets and where it's pulling from. It has nothing to do with the LGBTQIA community being open-minded. That doesn't make any sense, because that doesn't fit anywhere in the in what has historically happened, due to the fact that, again, you already have male figures who consider themselves heterosexual, that are dating robots that are women, and that's one of the highest selling items coming out of different countries, right? One of the hot items that you can find online. So it has no to say that it's the LGBTQIA community that is so open and they'll jump into AI. I doubt that. I think that it's more so that anybody who feels an attachment and wants to detach themselves away from that human connection.
I agree with you on that, Jatovi and Rick, but I think, and I get Sasha's point though, is that I think AI will recognize that they're more open and they're not susceptible. They're just more open,
Flexible. They're also flexible.
It's more flexible. Because the X and Y groups, that's all they care about. Whereas everything else is more about what is your characteristics, what is your love, what is your.
I'll tell you something.
And I agree with that part. I think it's all about the soul.
Let me explain to you something on my personal example. For example, yesterday in Toronto was a Pride parade. It was on TV, it was everywhere, so on and so on. Okay, philosophically, I totally support it, and it's fine, it's great, and it's let them go. Like, I'm surprised they don't do it every week or maybe even every day if they wish. However, inside of me, there's something what does not allow me to accept it. And I'll tell you what. For example, if I see a beautiful curvy girl and her legs, and I immediately appreciate it, and I'm amazed, I'm impressed, and I want to go for it all the way. And those people, they don't appreciate it, they don't care about it at all. And I feel that on this very
Again,
rudimentary level, we are very.
you're giving me an
And,
anecdote
and I'm
about
not
your
saying
life.
that I'm right and they're wrong. No, but
We're
for me, I'm right and they're wrong, and that's my human being, and I cannot argue with
Sasha,
it.
we're,
Sasha,
we're
Sasha,
all
hold on a second.
evolutionists.
Hold on a second. First off, your anecdote made no sense because you just said
Yeah.
that this beautiful, curvy woman that was appealing to you, and that those people in the LGBT community, it would not appeal to them. You do know that part of the LGBTQ is lesbian, so that means that it is a woman that is
It
attracted
would
to a
appeal
woman.
to a lesbian, okay? It could. It could also appeal to a gay person. I have met gay guys that are very attracted to some women who are built a certain way. I've met them.
Again,
I've been best friends with
again,
some of the gays in my community, and
again,
they all say, "Wow, that's a very attractive woman."
again,
Look,
what you guys are giving
all
is nothing.
evolution's bitches. We
We're-
come from, you know, we
So dead on, Rick.
we,
but
we
what
we come from billions of years of creatures who passed down their genes because they were horny. And so our horniness constantly fools us
Evolves.
and makes us act against our best interests. You know,
And-
Trump wouldn't have been president if Anthony Weiner could have controlled himself from sexting underage girls. If you remember how that whole FBI investigation with Hillary right at the end of 2016 played out, if Anthony Weiner hadn't used his wife's computer to get up to no good with some 16-year-old girl, Hillary Clinton would have been president.
But just to put a bow on this,
Rick, I've got to teach you about something because there is a company, and we've been talking about toys and robots and stuff. Then there's a company, I don't know if they're still number one, but they used to be number one, and they are actually based here in North Carolina and are very popular in North Carolina. I sometimes think that they are sarcastic in the name of their company because they are literally in the Bible Belt. So you can't tell me that it's an accident that they call themselves Adam and Eve and all in that space. So I just wonder, am I onto something there that it's just the nature of sexuality that is going to be anywhere, whether it's in the Bible Belt or not in the Bible Belt?
I know. I mean, sex is dwindling. Teens now have 25% less sex than teens did in the 80s because there's so much else going on. And as
Adam and Eve is one of the largest companies in e-commerce in the country, and you're going to tell me that sex is waning and that folks are still not interested in sexuality. I'm finding that hard.
No, people are still horny, and people, but like
I think so, yeah.
But when you look at incels, basement guys, there's a cornucopia of porn out there. So that there in the 70s, you had to go out and had to try to get a girlfriend. You had to go to bars, talk to girls, experience rejection. Now, millions of young guys have just given up on that whole thing, and they just follow their own non-sexual interests. They look at porn. They don't aspire to be kempt enough, well-groomed enough to get a girlfriend. They're just like, the hell with it. I'll just be my slob self. I'll
I just want to say, Rick, thank you for proving my point because everybody almost agreed, even Sasha and Kim agreed. Again, you're saying that there is so many other things to distract people from having sex, and you're saying that the sex has gone down because you have other opportunities, other ways, dolls and everything else, porn on
right.
And hold on, Rick, let me finish real quick.
Okay, sorry.
And so to put a bow on what I just talked about earlier, to say that it's going to be the LGBTQIA community to be the one to try it first, why wouldn't it be men who have found other ways like porn, dolls, and everything else?
Yeah.
But does that make them a homosexual or a doll sexual or what? What do you call them?
Kim, you know what will happen soon?
What do you call a person who wants to have sex in the
I'm
metaverse?
just proving
With
my
adults.
point.
Girls, you see, the girls
Just
will not be
asking.
able to find them.
I guess cyber
Because the
sexual.
girls will have to go and raid the basements and get these lazy idiots out of their
Cyborg sex.
and punish them and kick
Cyborg
them.
sex. So I think, the metaverse is definitely taking over. I think, if you ever watch the TV movie Stepford Wives, men are just never satisfied with how the women behave anyway. So they, create robots that replace us. Well, now it's dolls that are AI. But what do you call that? If you're
There's a
attracted to
term for it.
electronics
There's a
instead of
term
a
for-
human.
There's a term for remote sex, which it's called
Only you would know.
teledildonics.
What?
Teledildonics.
Telly.
It's tele meaning far. If you've got, say you have a robot that you're going to have sex with on your end, and that robot is controlled by your girlfriend who's 1,000 miles away remotely, that system is called tele-far dildonics, from dildo, teledildonics. I don't think that term will survive because it's weird and creepy.
It is creepy.
But there might be a new term. Maybe it already exists.
I'm gonna go watch the TV show again, Upload, because they were showing how people can have sex between heaven and earth, and I think they had a name for it too. But
That's
to
a really
me,
good
this
show.
is an
It's by the guy
attraction
who
to
created
artificial
The Office.
intelligence and computers and dolls. There's got to be a name for that. I mean, that's not.
Call it cybersexual. Somebody who is oriented towards having sex with at least partially, mechanical beings.
So we'll have to list this on dating sites now.
But there is something more to it. You see, it's not a question of physical intimacy and so on. It's also a moment of power game that the girls and females can play with their men, so especially if the men are deeply in love or so on. So this way, men are absolutely isolating themselves from this power grab by women, so they can do whatever they want, when they want, without asking permission, without doing anything. There is no interaction of any kind. That's it. And I think this is by far the most important point.
If
Such
you
a male.
like
Such a
Ryan
male.
Gosling, the actor, there is a movie called Lars and the Real Girl in which Ryan Gosling falls in love with a sex doll. And it's a pretty good movie.
I like this
What
term.
is it?
I like this term.
It's called Lars,
Tell us more about
Lars
this term.
is the name of it, and the Real Girl. Real Girl is I think the term for one of these pretty realistic sex dolls.
Wow. So we're at the end of our show this week. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to wrap up with that. And if you've got any ideas or suggestions for what we can call this new tele-dildo thing, because I don't like that name.
No, it's a terrible, gross name.
Send it to us because I think this is the new transition of sexuality or sex, whatever you guys want to do.
Hey, Kim, that could be our new poll question, or we can ask the audience today to come up with a new term. I know that there was a new term recently used that a lot of people started using when you are attracted to a person's brain, called sapiosexual.
Sapiosexual.
So
yeah.
maybe we can find a new term that is how you are attracted to a cyber robot or whatever the cyber term is. That'll be like the takeoff of sapiosexual. So anybody that is watching, we need a new term for somebody that is having a relationship and is interested in having a relationship with the robotic AI world and all of that. So that's like sapiosexual was people attracted to the brain. We need a new word for that. So
but it doesn't have to just be for sex. If every homeless person had a helper robot, we could fix the homeless to keep them from just spinning out of control and help them get social services. Because that's what it takes. Every homeless person needs their own concierge, but to help manage, because they've lost the ability to manage their lives in many cases.
You're
So-
right.
Hey, hold on a second, Rick.
You're
I know
right.
we're writing it down, but I cannot resist. Jacoby, unless you want to read it. I like ChatGPT's answer, and I was going to read what you put down there unless you want to read it because I love their answer. I think that's a great way to end the show.
That's all on you, Mark. You can take it away.
I'll go for it. From ChatGPT, according to Jacoby, after he asked the question, as an AI language model, I don't have personal emotion or consciousness, so I can't experience love or any other emotions. I am designed to process and generate text based on patterns, examples, and algorithms. While I can understand the concept of love and provide information about it, I don't have the ability to feel emotions myself. Love is a complex human emotion that involves deep affection, attachment, and connection with another person. It is a unique experience that I typically associated with conscious beings.
Well, who knows? Maybe AI will start mimicking us. And thank you very much for watching us. And we'll see you guys next week. Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thank you.
Anybody? There we go. Media.